Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, also known as 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Dr. Bill Pettit with us. Bill has been sharing the principles within his psychiatric practice for more than 35 years. He was mentored personally for over 26 years by Sid Banks. And Bill, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can share any additional information that you want, because your bio is long, and so you can pick what sounds best for this webinar.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're going to share that with people. I take it it's the short bio, so people can just take a look at that later. And I don't need. I am retired from psychiatry now, from clinical psychiatry at the present time, and certainly was been a physician for literally 50 years. I went to my 50-year reunion in Chicago in October from medical school, and it was a good thing that we had name tags, because a lot of those people I had not seen for 50 years. So name tags were important, but it was a wonderful experience. And I have practiced, as most people know, in a lot of different settings. I've taught for 10 years at West Virginia University. Was with Judy Sedgman I was the medical director of the Sydney Banks Institute for Innate Health, and even now have two appointments to Michigan State University Medical School, Osteopathic Medical School, and to the Creighton University. Although they're pretty much honorary right now. Although I've been asked to do some to be on a committee at Creighton here in Phoenix. So it's been quite a journey for the last 37 years since that April Fool's Day that I met Sid in 1983, and it changed my life. I had, as many of you know, I had struggled with depression for over 21 years, in and out of depression. I had seen 6 different psychiatrists. I think I'd come to believe that I was broken, and I came to believe that it was caused by things that had happened early in my life, and in my present life, it was happening from my spouse and my kids and my finances and my coworkers and everything external to me that I had no control over, or very little. And to become aware and realize that it was coming from what I was doing with these beautiful gifts of mind, thought, and consciousness, moment to moment, and my understanding of how the system worked, and that what resources were available, was really something. Today, Linda and I had the last meeting of what we call the Healers Clinic, which we had 9 people, 9 practitioners that had been meeting for a year. Today was in the 12th month, and I guess there was a 2-hour meeting that I left about 10 minutes early, and we had assigned readings from Sydney Banks's different books over the year. We covered all 6 books, and we had all of the 10 major videos, the 4 Hawaii lectures, the 4 Long Beach lectures, and the Washington lectures. And as it came to my time to share today, I said, when we set up those videos and those readings through all 6 of Sid's books over 11-month period, I thought we were doing it for the 9 practitioners that we had in our class. And what happened was, even after 37 years, as I read things, there were so many times that I felt like I'd been hit by a truck in a good way, because I read things that I'd read many, many times over the last years, or I listened to a video that Sid said something, and I went, oh my God, now for the first time, I've heard what he's saying. I'll give you just one example that I think is appropriate to, we said it was going to talk a little bit about kind of an overview of the course that I'm going to be doing starting March 25th, called the Mind, Brain, Body, Behavior Connection. Why exploring universal principles literally changes everything. And one of the things in our readings recently was Sid, I think it's from the Quest of the Pearl, and it's about page 60 or 62, where Sid says, that we're talking about, and he really is talking about divine mind, and saying that every human being is at its essence is a divine thought system. But as human beings, we've been given the gift of having our own personal thought system also. And not only that, we've been given a free will that we can listen either to the divine thought system or to our personal thought system. Our personal thought system being whatever we've accumulated in our brain for however many years of experience we've had. And I read that and I heard it for the first time in 37 years. I went, holy crap. Holy crap. If Sid was alive, I probably would do what I did the fourth time that I read the Second Chance. I'd call him up and say, Sid, I really like this new version of this videotape you put out. Or I really like this new edition of Quest of the Pearl. Because I did that with the question of what is your definition of success. And he started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I said, Sid, pardon me, but what is so funny? And he said, Bill, I've never changed one word of that. And that was my fourth reading, was the first time I heard it. This must have been my 20th reading of Quest of the Pearl, when I heard we all have the divine thought system available to us every moment of our lives. In fact, it's not like the library that you have access to it. It is actively trying to guide every one of us every moment of our lives. Wow, that's profound, if that's true. I think it's true in my experience. And what I started seeing was that line from page 6 in The Missing Link, where it had new meaning to me as I saw that we do have a divine thought system. In fact, that's what we are. Where Sid says, the divine passes from the formless to the form. And as human beings, we are both spectators and participants in this spiritual theater called life. Both spectators, as humans, both spectators and participants. By the way, I'm going to talk for a little over 30 minutes and then make sure that we have at least 30 minutes for questions. And I may have said this earlier, but it's just what's so fresh for me as I realized, wow, that is the difference between human beings. And I'd like to take a journey through the animal world and the plant world. And I've got a course from the great courses on both of them. I'm sure I'll have even more insights, but and I even want to look at the geology, because people think of the rocks as just rocks. And yet there's made of atoms, and they've got electrons going 3/4 the speed of light around every atom. There's incredible energy. Everything in this entire universe is indeed the same energy in a different disguise. And I recently was told by somebody that works, has worked for 30 years in healthy organic growing and stuff, and he talked about how the plants send out, and he had words for them that I don't have, and they literally, the rocks around it respond to the signals from the plant and give up trace materials that the plants need, and they're carried back to the plant from the rocks. Now, he's a scientist. And I'm going, wow. Wow. So those rocks are a participant in this spiritual theater called life. They're formless energy that has taken a form that's, if you will, even feeding the plants. And then I go to the plant kingdom, and I don't think the rocks have a choice of saying, I'm sorry, it's too early in the morning. I'm not sending you those trace elements. Our business hours are 9 to 5. Come back, plant, with your request later, and maybe we'll send you some trace elements then. And I don't think so. I don't think the rock has a choice. I think it's part of the divine thought system. So then you take the plant, the flowers, and we could take it, people that know plants and the plant world could give probably 1,000 better examples to me. But I love the one that if you take a group of flowers and you cover them over all around, all 3 sides, and even on the top, but you leave one end of the flowers open to the sun, the flowers literally, every one of them does what? It starts to bend, literally grows, changes its angle, and grows towards bends towards the sun to get the maximum amount of sun. And interestingly, as it bends, not only for itself, it makes it, as it bends, it makes it available for the flowers behind it to receive sun, and they bend. And as far back as possible, the flowers get the light they need to grow and to stay alive. Wow. Those flowers are truly, they're truly participants in this spiritual theater called life. But I don't think they have two things. I don't think they know they have consciousness. They may, I don't know. I've never been a plant. Maybe someday I'll be a rose. I don't know. I don't know what's possible. But I don't know that they have consciousness. But it appears that they don't have a choice to bend. I kiddingly say even the adolescent flowers bend towards the light. They don't fold their arms and say, you can't make me. I'm not bending for any sun or any, right? They don't. All the flowers bend towards the light. So then we go to the animal world. And again, there's so many incredible stories in the animal world. I love National Geographic. I don't read it fully every time, but when I do, some of the stories are remarkable in the animal world. But just as many of you heard many times, I'm fascinated with the whales in our Northwest. And as I understand it, I may be wrong, but they go down to the Hawaiian Islands every year, I believe, and they have their babies. And I always say the men go along too. Who doesn't want to go to the Hawaiian Islands, you know? And then they come back every year to the Northwest, and every year they come back with a different song. Every year the whales come back, and it's not the same song every year. It's a different song, except every one of them have the same song. The whales are participants in this spiritual theater called life. They are divine thought system manifested and in motion. Again, I don't know that they are aware. I don't think that they have consciousness to be aware that that's what they are, this divine thought system, divine energy in a form, in a disguise. And I don't know that, I don't think they have a choice. I don't think one of the adolescent whales on the way back to the Northwest, that when there used to be cruise ships, we'll talk about that later, but when they're going by a cruise ship and one of the adolescent whales hears Tupac doing hip hop on the cruise ship and says to their parent, I think I'm going to do Tupac this year. I'm not going to do this whale song that we learned down in the Hawaiian Islands. I don't think they have the choice. Here's the deal, folks. We are spectators, unlike the rocks and the flowers and the whales. We have the ability, the potential, we have within us the awareness, if we can tap into it, that we are divine energy in disguise, and that we have a divine thought system that's guiding us every moment. And we have a free will. Now, the free will, people, this is beyond this talk today. You could do a whole thing on free will, but our free will is limited by our level of understanding. Because when people get incredibly stressed, use these three gifts to innocently bring themselves to a lower and lower feeling level, their choices that they see get more and more limited. And at the bottom, when people get to feeling totally isolated, alone, and in terrible pain, sadly for some people, the choice is, when I kill myself, do I kill anybody else with me? Because I feel so much pain and so isolated, and I feel so much anger that nobody's been able to help me, that I feel like that's the choice. That's a very limited choice. But the more that we live in a state of understanding, interestingly, our choices increase, but there is also a level of internal peace and clarity that people reach if they know to listen to the divine thought system, where again, we only have one choice, but it's because we just see with clarity what to do. Right? I see some nods. Linda and I watched a movie the other night that I encourage you to listen to watch, and it's called Harriet. Has anybody watched it yet? It's Harriet Tubman, who was a slave and escaped, and it's an incredible story, and then went back many times and even led she's the only woman to have led an armed group of armed people later in the war, but amazing. And she had an understanding. Now she would call it that she listened to God, but that's what we're talking about. That's what Sid said. He said he saw what people called God was. He saw what life was, and he saw how the two were connected. And so there's many times, at least as they portray it, and it supposedly is based on a lot of written stuff from her and from people that knew her, that she knew when she came into a state of not knowing or confusion, she knew immediately to go to quiet. She didn't try to figure it out with her intellect, which I did for 41 years. Analysis paralysis. Am I the only one here that did that? No? Okay. nice to not feel totally alone. Because I didn't know. Nobody had told me. I mean, some of the work that the people are doing around the world with young people in schools, in middle school, in early school, and then high school, to become aware that that's what we are, and that's what's trying to guide us every moment of our life if we have the humility and the courage to listen. And time after time, Harriet Tubman would just stop and she'd get really quiet. Now, she would say that God talked to her then, because to her it was a live experience where she would suddenly know, no, if we go that way, they're waiting for us. We go this way. We go this way. We do this. But she knew when to and how to allow her mind to quiet by getting totally present. People say, how do you quiet your mind? I'll tell you, one way you don't quiet your mind is to try to quiet your mind. Anybody besides me ever tried to quiet your mind? Does it work? No. I see. So, but if you just get present in your life as best as you can, even if it's only a 3 out of 10, be the best 3 you can be, you're headed for a 4. All we have to do is so simple. Sid said repeatedly in the 26 years that he mentored me, Bill, it's so simple. People want to make it complicated. When the answer is simple, it's from the spirit. When the answer is complicated, it's from the intellect. Listen for simplicity. And to me, it's gotten that simple that we are a divine thought system in a form. You know, the non-duality people have a real point. A lot of people have been reluctant in the principles over the first 25 years that I was around to talk about the formless. And without the formless, without seeing the oneness in life, it is confusing. But if you see that everything, ourselves included, is the same energy in a different disguise. Now, to me, the one point that I think that some people miss in the non-duality is that Sid also said the individual side of consciousness we call the soul. The universal side of consciousness we call God. So the fact that everything is the same energy and there is a oneness does not compete with the fact that we've been given and granted an individual side of consciousness. Call it the soul, call it whatever, where we can experience and be a spectator and be aware of what we are and what's guiding us every moment. Now, many people, I'm sure, are aware of where Sid talks about the difference between the mind and the brain. And he says, you know, very clearly, because a lot of people, even there's famous scientists that would say that the mind is a reflection of certain nuclei in the brain. And it just doesn't ring true to me. Some believe the brain and the mind are the same, but there has to be a power behind the brain to make it function. The brain is biological, the mind is spiritual. It means the mind is, that word spiritual seems to bug people. If you look it up, it says it has no form. It doesn't have anything to do with dogma or religion. Spiritual means that we're formed energy from a formless source. I walked out about 10, 14 days ago. I walked out, and I don't know why this happened on that day and not other days, but I suddenly looked around. I guess I was present enough that I looked around, and everywhere I looked, I saw beauty. And I'm not, I lived for 5 years in a house, or a number of years in a house before Linda and I met and married. We'd both been widowed. And she and my daughter asked if they could take down this thing on the living room that had some ducks in it. It had ducks, flying ducks, right? And I looked at him and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, I'd lived in the house for 4 years and I'd never seen the ducks up around the living room. So for me to be outside seeing nothing but beauty is a major, major thing. But what came to me as I was overwhelmed with this, or not overwhelmed, but just appreciating all the beauty that I saw, the thought came to me, wow, if there's this much beauty in form, how beautiful is the formless? How much beauty is there in the place from which it came? One of the things that I say to people often is, I'll be 78 here in a couple of months. And I say, the time is going to come sometime in the future. Who knows whether it's going to be tomorrow or 10 years from now or whatever, but that somebody could be walking around with a little white box. And you say, what do you have in the white box? And they say, I got Dr. Pettit's brain. We're trying to find out what was going on there, because sometimes it was really strange, right? But you're never going to have somebody walking around with a little white box. Somebody's unmuted. You're never going to have somebody walking around with a little white box that says Dr. Pettit's mind. The Greeks knew this. They knew that there was something non-physical about being human, and they called it the psyche. The spiritual, the mind, the soul. And they knew that there was a body. That's why we have the psychosomatic. I'm board certified in psychosomatic medicine. The connection between the mind and the body. Because they're both the same energy. As Sid says, there's no difference. They're both, some people think they're God inside and then the outside is the body. And he said, there's no difference. It's the same energy. And that body is I think the divine is benign and is always trying to wake us up, whether it's the earth trying to wake us up, or whether it's our own personal bodies trying to wake us up. And I didn't know that for 41 years of my life. I didn't know that I was getting love letters from my body, trying to get me to look in a different direction. Some of you have heard me probably many times talk about one of my favorite Far Side cartoons, even though it's really kind of bizarre that my real favorite is a different one, but I won't divert because of time, but you can ask me some other time or read the questions. But where the two pilots on the Far Side cartoon is just a one picture thing, and they're looking out from their 747 cockpit, and one of the pilots sees it, and you can see a goat. And the pilot says, boy, you usually don't see goats up this high. Well, I see some people going kind of quizzical, but other people saying, shit, 2 seconds later, what happened? They hit the mountain because they were off glide path so far that they slammed into the mountain. Now, why is that relative? Because for me, before I met Mr. Banks and started to look in the direction of these three universal principles, I very frequently crashed into the mountain, either physically by passing a kidney stone. Every single time I've passed a kidney stone, which I've passed about 10 to 12 of them, and been hospitalized at least twice, and been to emergency rooms doing the kidney stone dance. Every time I was mentally stressing myself out. Every time that my back used to go out and I was in spasm for 4 days, lying, taking Valium and muscle relaxants. Now, back then, 35 years ago, I had 2 bulging discs. Most people don't know this. If you take 100 people off the street that are asymptomatic, they have no back pain, 50% of them will have bulging discs, but they have no pain. But that's what I always thought. That's why I had the back pain, because of my bulging discs. Now, for the last 30, here I am 78 years old, and I don't have the back pain. That something's different. My muscles are not constantly pulling on that like they were when I was spending 6 to 9 hours a day in worry, guilt, resentment, upset, drivenness, overanalysis, worry. I didn't know any better. And the important thing is to be gentle with yourselves as you become more aware of the mind-brain-body connection. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about every moment of our life is a second chance. Every moment of our life while we're still breathing is a second chance to see something new. If I've burnt the cookies, I can't unburn the cookies. I can cook a new batch with my new level of understanding of this stove and the time it needs to cook the cookies so I don't burn them. To me, that's been one of the most beautiful insights to keep from regret, to learn from my past experiences, to do what I can if I need to make amends, if I need to, and I can. Sometimes I can't. If I need to say I'm sorry. But it's okay. We're human beings. Sid always said, if you strive for perfection, you will fail miserably. If you do the best you can to take care of yourself, because the most selfless thing you can do is to have a state of mental well-being. And accept where you are is the first step towards moving forward. So I'm going to stop here. The one thing I'll say is that, and some of you have heard me say it, I didn't know they were love letters. To me, it's a love letter to me that when I put my hand on a hot stove, I feel terrible pain, because that allows me to pull that hand off very quickly and minimize the tissue damage to my hand. Does that make sense to people? That it's good that I feel really pain? The same thing, if we start to misuse innocently through lack of understanding or even awareness. For me, for many years, I was unaware that there was a divine thought system, and that I thought all the answers, the only way I could get them was to go to my personal thought system and to ruminate and analyze. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there's a divine thought system that has even it set up. It lets me know when I'm off glide path, because invariably my mood will go down, my tension level will go up, and my thinking will get less clear. Those are the internal experiences. My mood will go down, my anxiety will go up, my tension, and my thinking will become less clear. Now, what's genetic is which one of those alarms is the most sensitive. So I'm just going to take names here. Greg, Terry, and Thomas. One of you may have a more sensitive, that your mood going down is the biggest alarm that you get. You realize you're feeling sad or down. Another one might be, no, you know, the thing I notice most is I feel anxiety. And the third person, Thomas, might say, you know what, those are there, but the thing that really jumps out to me is that my thinking, I'm forgetting things. My attention span is short. I'm misplacing my keys. I'm missing appointments. Those are the three internal alarms, love letters, to let me know that I'm innocently misusing mind, thought, and consciousness. The fourth one is the body. I won't go through the physiological symptoms, how it occurs, but your tolerance for pain in the state of mental stress goes down tremendously. So you feel pain at input that people that are healthy do not feel pain. So you start feeling pain at different places in your body. It's a love letter. It's an alarm system. Then we start feeling this dis-ease, this growing state of dis-ease. And what do? We start having obsessive and compulsive thoughts to do things against our own moral code or things that are unhealthy for us, because we want to desperately try to relieve this dis-ease that we've innocently created, thinking that it's coming from the outside and not realizing that we're innocently creating it from the inside. And please hear the innocence. Please hear the innocence. People that are addicted, whether it's to alcohol or food or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, or drugs. They're doing the best that they know to try to navigate and stay alive until they can see more. So with that, I've gone a little over the 30 minutes, but I'm going to get a clip or something and put it on my lips and listen. So I'll stop.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, but when you're not speaking, if you could mute yourself again, that would be great. Or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
I haven't read the chat, but I saw that. Oh, go ahead, Craig.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
It's funny. When I'm in a higher mood, I never question my abilities and my sharing of the principles. It's only when I'm in a low mood that everything becomes suspect. And I had a gathering last night, and I realized I was pointing to something, but I realized I didn't know much about it. And it's this, I hear it a lot, and I've been, had the honor of being around first generation teachers of Sid Banks. But there's this thing that we're sitting on this, that we're all okay, always already okay, no matter what. And what I'm seeing is that I have that conceptually, but I don't think I've ever really fully embraced that. And I was really touched by the webinar, the global webinar that happened. And there was Kathy Casey was talking, and there was a guy that chimed in that had just gotten out of prison for 20 years, and now he's sharing this in prisons. And I just got brought to tears, because he had just kind of gotten onto the principles, and he was talking about how when he'd go into prison, the first thing he would let people know is that they're okay. And I don't know why that hit me, but that seems really, maybe it's just because of the mood I'm in right now. I'm struggling with a little bit of a cold or whatever it is, but I don't know that I see myself as okay. And I don't know. I just wanted to share that.
Is it okay for me to ask a question?
Yeah.
What does okay mean to you? I mean, I think I asked that just for clarification, because I think a lot of times I in the past have answered, and I'm sure even nowadays, but I answer questions and I have no idea. I don't really know what the person's asking. So I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by I'm okay?
Well, I think that
Or I'm not.
I've been on such this hamster wheel of striving, and feeling like my okayness is somehow always out there in the future somewhere. If I get this box checked off, or it's just like I can never relax into just being. I mean, I have my moments for sure, and it's more of my low mood speaking right now, because I've had delightful moments. But in this moment, what's true is, it seems like I'm not okay with what is right now, or that's kind of the lingering fever. You know, it's like something. Yeah, I don't know.
No. Good luck on finding peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because when we're not okay with what is, we're in resistance. When we're in resistance to what is, that's where the suffering comes in. Right? I mean, you know that intellectually, right?
Yeah.
And please don't hear judgment or whatever, but does it ring true to you that the first step towards having things be better is or does that feel like surrender, you know, that you're giving up, or if you're not trying to change things? Or
yeah, no, I've had moments of contentment and seeing beauty all around me. It's just right now it seems like I've lost my bearings in this moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, we all do. That's part of being human, right?
Yeah.
So what the question to me is, first of all, that Sid made it very clear that there's an infinite number of levels of understanding of these principles. There's no, you know, I get it. There's no it. And I hear people like somebody recently that consulted with me said, you know, gosh, I've been around for I really understand these principles, but I'm worrying about 7 hours a day. Well, no judgment, but that'd be like saying, I really understand gravity, but you know, 4 times today, I let go of my coffee here, and I've made messes all over the floor. I mean, I asked the person, I said, how many times have you not put your coffee or your drink on your table? She said, well, no, I haven't. No. I said, why? She said, because I know gravity. Yeah, you don't believe in gravity. You know gravity. You have you gone out this last year? Have you traveled much? Oh yeah, I've traveled a bunch. Have you ever been like on the 3rd or 4th floor and you've been late for? Yeah, I have. How many times did you go out the window? Because it'd be much quicker than the elevator or the stairs. Well, I wouldn't do that. I said, why? She said, because I know gravity. I know the price I'd pay. So when people say that, and myself included, and believe me, my 37 years has not been, I have stumbled and fallen and crashed into mountains in the 37. I just got over a 3-week cold about 2 weeks ago. I know it was letting me know that slowing down to the speed of life at 77.5, the speed of life is not the same as it was at 47 or 37 or 57. So one of the things I would say, Greg, is to be gentle with yourself, that you're like the rest of us, you're on a journey. And to the degree that we can start to know what direction to look when we're lost. First of all, you've probably heard me say this. I don't know if you have. I mean it when I say I get excited when I'm having emotional pain. Have you heard me say that before?
Yeah, I have.
Why do I say that I say that?
Because it's giving you a course correction, you know, or it's giving you more understanding.
Well, it's given me the opportunity. I'm up against, I would not be in the low mood for or feeling emotional pain if I wasn't up against something that's challenged my level of understanding. And so you might have heard me say that the Chinese symbol and that was shown by a Chinese friend physician. The Chinese symbol for crisis is two symbols put together. Do you remember that at all? Or
Yeah, opportunity and risk or fear or something like that.
one is danger,
Danger, yeah.
and one is opportunity.
Yeah.
So whenever we're in crisis, if we turn towards the intellect, I guarantee you it's dangerous, and we're going to have more problems. And if we act on the experiences that we're having instead of knowing that they're thought-created experiences, and all we have to do is to get present as best as we can, and it'll pass in 3 to 5 minutes even. If we can just allow ourselves to be quiet and be patient and do the best we can. So to me, it's I get excited because I know that I have an opportunity to see something, to go through a few more doors of understanding of the principles, to have some insights. Then as I quiet down, it may be I'm moved to go read something or see something, or maybe just to stay quiet, or maybe to take a walk, or maybe to sit quietly. Who knows how I'll be guided. But I know it's not the end of the world. And I know that if I really am what I believe I am, made of that I'm divine energy in a disguise, I'm never alone. It's with me always. I'm just smothering it over with my thinking. If I just know not to go to the intellect for the answer, and then my well-being, like you said, is not connected to what I accomplish. It's not. That's not it. You know, when Sid said at the end of the first chapter of Second Chance, you've read Second Chance a number of times, I take it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the question he asked at the end of Richard asks Jonathan at the end of the first chapter?
Yeah, what's your definition of success or something like that?
Yeah, and what does he say?
Happiness and contentment or something like that?
Yeah, and Richard says, is that all?
Yeah.
And Jonathan says, isn't that enough?
Yeah.
See, because we don't seem to realize that when we're in a place of happiness and contentment, we have every bit of our being available. And that includes a clarity and a wisdom going forward. So please be gentle with yourself.
Thank you, Bill.
As the doctor said to the mother of the 1-year-old who had swallowed a penny, you know what she said? He said, "This too shall pass." No, this too shall pass.
Thank you.
Yeah, you.
Hi, Claudette.
Thanks. Bill, could you define well-being or share how you define well-being? Because I mean, that's a term that's used all the time, and I think I know what it means for myself, but I don't know that I have the same general meaning that, other folks do. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, it's an experience of peace, but I'll tell you what it is. And Sid even says, it's interesting because it's not the way we usually use language. He said, you're looking for one magical thought. If you can find that one magical thought, you're free. You really are. You're free for life. And honestly, all it is love and understanding. So in a state of well-being, to me, it's just a state where we're present in our life, uncontaminated by past experiences or future worries. We're just present. You watch young children, 98% of the time. We've got 2 little grandsons that live just a couple of miles from us. I mean, I've got 10 grandchildren and 1. But if you watch children, vast majority of the time of young children, where are they? They're in the present.
Right. Yeah.
They're in the present moment. There's, like Sid said, I've spent 27 years trying to help people live in the only thing that exists. It's that simple.
Mm.
So all well-being is for me is being in my life now,
Mm.
in the present moment.
Mhm.
So that's the best I can do now, because in that present moment, if I'm totally present, there's love and understanding is part of the package that
Yes.
comes there
Mhm.
eh,
Mhm.
uniformly. Is that
It does help. Right. Right. It actually makes it simpler.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Than what I had. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real simple. It's just a nice feeling. It's living in a feeling of love and understanding, and being present without burden, being present without, you know. Elsie talks about that. You know, that thing about we're okay no matter what that Greg mentioned. I think what she said is my understanding is that we are okay. We are okay always. We don't, but if we don't know it, we don't experience okayness.
Right. Yes. Right.
But the deeper that we understand the principles, or whatever you want to call it, the more grounded as we go. But you can't get there. But and Sid said, don't try to see more than you already see. Now that sounds like a paradox. And the reason he says that is because the only way you'll try to see more is with your intellect, because
Mm.
you're trying to see something that you don't see. But if you live in the present moment as best as you can, just being in the present moment as best as you can, it's inevitable that you see more, that you will see more. You will be carried by the feeling that comes from living in the present moment. Many of you have heard me tell the story about the lady that came in that rated her depression as 9 out of 10 and her anxiety as 9 out of 10. She was a grandmother. And she was puzzled, though. She said she was depressed practically all the time and very anxious. Except twice a week, her grandchildren came over for 2 hours. You heard that story, Claudette?
I haven't. No.
No. So she says, for 2 hours, those 2 hours, my grandchildren make me happy. Twice a week for 2 hours. And there was a reason I got spanked as a child, and I'm still somewhat mischievous. And so I said to her, with not a stern look, but a rather serious look, I said, Betty, that's not fair. She says, what do you mean? I said, it's not fair to blame your grandchildren. It's not fair. It's not their fault. She said, what the hell are you talking about? I said, it's not their fault that you're happy the 2 hours they're there. It's not fair to blame them. She said, what are you talking about? I said, tell me if this isn't true. And this goes back to your question. When your grandchildren come over, they are more important than the thoughts you've been ruminating about in your head. Being present with them is more important than your thoughts. So you let go of your attention to your thoughts and you get in the only thing that exists, which is the present moment. And their presence draws you into the present, and then you're filled up from the inside with this happiness and joy and aliveness and love and understanding that's inside of you, and it fills you up because you've released the valve, and you blame it on them. You blame it on your grandchildren. And then they leave, and you go back to paying attention and doing battle with all your content of your thinking, and the valve closes, and your happiness goes away, and you blame it on them leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because you left the present moment.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
It does. It does.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank
Want
you.
to make it, our intellect wants to make it more complicated. I don't know if you heard me quote from the, how many people, if I can see a couple of hands, anybody watched Frozen 2? One person, okay. Linda and I watched Frozen 2 recently. She had two 6.5, my son has twin girls, 6.5, twin boys, 4.5. So I had two 4.5 little boys on my lap in the recliner. She had two 6.5, and we're watching Frozen 2. And there's this wonderful song. You can probably go on YouTube and get it. And it's by the Trolls. They're little green round guys, and there's about 40 of them. And they raised this guy who they found as an infant in the thing. And they're saying about how he's a fixer-upper. But then they say, we're all fixer-uppers, right? But then they have this wonderful line that I really am going to put in a book, you know, because the line of the song is, everybody makes, tell me if this isn't true. If everybody knew this, the world would change. Everybody makes bad decisions when they're angry, scared, or stressed. True or not true, folks? 100% of the time, not 80-20. Everybody makes bad decisions when they're angry, scared, or stressed. Unless the only decision is to wait till I feel better, you know. And then they have this other wisdom at the end of it. It says, the best you can do is throw a little love at them, because every once in a while it'll stick, and it'll help them out of their angry, scared, or stressed state. Very powerful. I hope that's helpful. I'm fine on going but like till 10 after at least, if people are up for it, so we have at least 30 minutes of question. I see there's a chat thing that's come up and said, how do you do nothing? You know, people take things literally. And to me, all that means is you pay as little attention to your personal thinking as possible, and you just get in your life. You know, some of you have heard the story of my friend who was in combat, and all 9 of his other people in his company were killed by a rocket attack. And he was the medic, and he tried like hell to save every one of them, and they all died as he had his own eyeball sticking out of his head, and he lost his eye. That was 12 years ago. I met him that was 14 years ago. I met him in 2008. He was one of the first 27 soldiers in what's called Brothers for Life, BFL, if you ever want to check it out. It's Israeli combat injured soldiers. There was 27 of them that had PTSD, and now there's over 1,100 in the society in Israel. And 12 years after, I mean, he has learned the principles, and he's a psychologist, and he's in his internship in child and adolescent psychology. And he and his 2 buddies went to Barcelona, and they walked out of the airport a few months ago, and it was a celebration of the, what do you call it, national holiday. So there were fireworks going off and explosions. And this man who's really doing fine in his life, he's got a wonderful relationship, and he suddenly, his brain did what? His brain reacted as if he was back in battle, and they were under attack again with a rocket attack. And his heart started going 160. His heart started going 160. He was breathing heavily. He was sweating profusely. And somebody without understanding would do what? They'd try to do something to change it, wouldn't they? Right? They'd be in resistance to the experience, and they'd cause more suffering. Instead, because of his understanding that he carries with him of the principles, he said, I immediately just sat down on the curb. And within 5 minutes, I realized I was totally calm. My heart was normal. My breathing was normal. I was no longer perspiring. And I felt a deep level of calm inside. And I looked up at the fireworks and said, is this cool or what? And they went off and had a wonderful weekend in Barcelona. They didn't have to take the next flight back to their home country. Again, this is not a should. It's not about laying shoulds on yourself. The principles are not telling you how to behave any more than gravity is. But if, as you increase in your understanding of the system, your behavior will change just because you know when to take your thinking seriously and when not to, depending on your feeling level. So I hope that's helpful. But know that there's no shoulds here. There's no dogma here. It's just an attempt to explain the system and take whatever makes sense to you. But if you're finding more and more that you're living more of the time in a responsive state rather than a reactive state, then you know you're going in the right direction. And believe me, direction is the key. It's not the speed. If you're going 80 miles an hour in the wrong direction, it's just going to get worse. It's better to be going 15 miles an hour in the right direction.
Carolyn, did you still want to ask your question? There you go.
Okay. Listening to you, Bill, it kind of answers a lot of my questions, but I have a granddaughter who's in her 20s now, and she was born, I don't remember the name of what she has, but it's, there's a book about it, The Out of Sync Child, you know, where being touched is very hard for them. And so I guess my question is, her life has gone to shambles. She had a baby and she did crack, the baby's been taken away. When you're born with this disorder, is her brain organically different? And she doesn't, I would like to teach her this, but I don't know if she would be able to follow it, because she seems to have a hard time following a straight line of thought. You know, so that's my question.
So let me, feel free, let me clarify. So you said you want to teach this to her?
Yeah, I want to help her understand this understanding.
Okay. But you're wondering if she's capable of having this understanding?
If she could follow it, yeah.
Okay. Let me see how to answer that. See, what's true is in the form, there's people with different processors. Mm-hmm. And we can have traumatic brain injury even, okay? That's our computer. There's people that have what we describe it, and even your language, Carolyn, it's just the language of that we live in, that she has this disorder. What she has is she's got a different processor. Mm. Like somebody with, you know, they're being puzzled by some of the research where people, there was one case in England, there's been a number of studies where people with diagnosed autism, 25 to 27%, up to 30%, it disappears. How'd that happen?
Wow.
Okay. Disappears. Now, what it is, and I referred, and I don't know if it sounds like she has hypersensitivity physical, and is she seen as somebody, quote, on the autism spectrum disorder, or is it?
I've never heard that about her, but it's possible.
So, but she's talking about something in the brain is different from the average, right? She's not on, yeah, okay. So what you're talking about is a different processor. And to the degree but she's made of divine energy. To me, she's perfectly mentally healthy inside, except for her level of spiritual and psychological understanding. Mm-hmm. Now, there's going to become a day where this understanding is going to be so universal that people will not be seen as having disorders that have a different processor.
Right.
And there'll be so if you were to ask me what's the best thing you can do, number one is to love her and to listen to her, and wisdom will guide you, because I don't think you can teach the principles.
No.
What you can is you can point to them.
Yeah.
And even if there's any way that teach becomes a word that you can use with the principles, if we teach the principles in any way, it's by the way we are, not by anything that we say, right?
Right.
So to me, I would have certainty. That's what's allowed me to sit in front of people that are floridly psychotic, hearing voices and know that they're perfectly mentally healthy, and speak to that place, and have seen, not always, not even the majority, but have had enough experiences in 37 years where they literally came out of their psychosis in front of me.
Yeah.
And nurses and people said that's impossible, but it wasn't. And you know the story of the man who was schizophrenic for 47 years in the state hospitals that suddenly started laughing hysterically in the group and said, I realized that I've been making myself crazy for 47 years with my own thinking. So I guess what I'm saying is she has perfect mental well-being inside. Are there even moments where she's quiet and loving, even one moment out of every 3 days? Or
when she had her baby, and then I think she was then. I haven't seen her for a long time. She lives far away, and right now she's missing. We don't know where she
if
is.
a person can have one moment of it,
that's true.
then they can live in, then it's there, right?
Yeah, good point. Yep.
And I hope my heart goes out to you, because to have somebody that you love not knowing where they are and being, uncertain is certainly challenges our level of understanding. Yeah. But the more you can stay in the present, the more you're going to be guided to know how to be of help.
Yeah, thank you.
But know that she's got perfect. She's made of the same divine energy you and I are made of. Mm-hmm. It's that when Sid says that they could only speak in metaphors because this wisdom, this spiritual wisdom, then again, all it means is formless. The spiritual wisdom that lies within the consciousness of all human beings. It doesn't say except for people that, no exceptions. No exceptions.
Yeah. Okay.
At least that's true for me.
Yeah.
Some people would say that's just a belief, Bill. No, okay. Yeah. It's just an experience over 37 years.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Shall we take one?
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, hi, Terry.
Hi. Carolyn, I just wanted to say to you that I have a client who is, she would be considered mentally handicapped. She has a very low IQ, and she's in a group home. She's probably in her 30s, and she hears something. She keeps coming back, and she keeps telling her mom that she wants to, and so she hears something. And I never talked to her specifically about the principles. We'll touch on thought now and then, but my feeling is that she's actually feeling something. That it's not so much my words, and it's not what her intellect is taking in, it's beyond that. That's my sense with her. So I just wanted to mention that.
Carolyn, and I know it seems to be some, so I won't, and not to, what I want to say, to tell people what they should do, because it's not what you should do, but I will tell you what I would do if I got a chance to meet with her as a friend, as a relative, as somebody that loved her. I would say, I would do whatever helped her be in the best state of mind, whether there was having some frozen yogurt or whatever. And then I'd say, would you give me 16 minutes of your life and watch the first 16 minutes of The Great Illusion by Sydney Banks? Because I have had so many people that were impacted by that first 16 minutes that wanted to watch the whole thing. And if they, not with no investment, because it may be a week later, that 2 weeks later, a month later, she'd come back and say, Carolyn, can we watch could we watch more of that? Remember that old man that, because there's something, when words spoken directly from truth, they hit that place of truth in people. And I've had people that have been diagnosed with all kinds of things that sat with me and watched that video, and something remarkable happened. So that just came to mind. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do we have any more before we stop? Maybe one more?
I can just.
Bill, I know we're almost out of time, but I wanted to hear about your course.
Well, it's going to be, I'm excited about it. I'll just say very quickly, it's going to be 8 weeks. And it's not going to be participatory in live because there's going to be over 100 people on it. But it's going to be divided up into 4 25-minute presentations. There's going to be 32 presentations in 8 2-hour. Is that confusing? So in a 2-hour period, there's going to be a 25-minute presentation, 5-minute break to just let it settle. 25-minute presentation, 5-minute break, let it settle. 25-minute presentation, 5-minute break, let it settle, and then we'll have the last 30 minutes, which will be 25 more minutes, and then a 5-minute overview. And it's going to be about what I just talked about, that about how I'm going to explain how the body works at a much deeper level, but how an understanding of the principles changes everything, and it does. It changes everything. It brings us, if we can. What we're really looking for is spiritual healing. Spiritual healing, and then when there's spiritual healing, the body will do whatever it can at that stage to, like I don't know if you know Alan Flood, I had on the course last time. Alan Flood wrote a book. He interviewed Sid for his master's degree back in the 1970s. And he wrote a book called Perfect Misfortune. And it's his story of getting neurological disease. I'm blocking.
You've had MS, I think.
For MS, multiple sclerosis, and he's had it for 38 years. It nibbles at him. But he says, perfect misfortune. It saved my life, he said. I wouldn't be alive if I had not gotten multiple sclerosis, because it stopped me in my tracks. And it made me remember what's really important in life. Now, if we can hear that with a cold, I think it's probably better than multiple sclerosis. Or we can hear it, with a cold is better than somebody having a migraine, having to have a migraine, or me a kidney stone, or have my back go out. But the more that we are open to listening to and seeing things as information and as love letters rather than something else to worry about, it changes everything. And that's what the course is going to be about. It's going to be 32 presentations. I think that when it's transcribed, it's going to be the essence of my first book. So I think it'll be good. Khalifa, did you have something you wanted to say? Can he unmute or? Can we unmute? Yeah, go ahead, Khalifa. Did you have something you wanted to say? You're unmuted, Khalifa. Maybe not. I thought did you have something you wanted to say? I thought he said he had something he wanted.
You are unmuted, but we can't hear you. So
I don't speaking yet. Are you? Okay. Okay. That's okay. 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 Is this a place to stop, Bonnie?
Sorry,
As I used to say in my,
muting myself.
maybe we should stop while we're behind.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that was such a great webinar. Thank you so much. I'm coming away with, I'm sure, many more little gems, but 2 things that I've heard about many times and thought about, and I just heard in very simple terms. And one is, and I don't even know if you said this, but this is what I heard.
Right.
That free will is our ability to choose divine thought over personal thought. Mm-hmm. And that if I have an issue or an upset, it's just something bumping against my level of understanding. like so simply put, those two things. Really love that.
And even if I just know that you know, and that to do as little as possible until I feel better.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, now if your child's running into the street or somebody throws a hand grenade through the building, then you do, through the window, you do whatever. But 99.9% of the time, we don't have to act in this exact moment. We can, you know, how many of us have, you know, parents need to time out sometimes just as much as children, if not more. I remember as a parent, there's times I said, kids, I have to go to the bathroom. And I went and I just sat for 5 minutes on top of the toilet. so I could find my bearings again and get present.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it that you were willing to come on and talk to us today. And just to let everybody know, the next webinar is with Natasha Swerdloff, and it's on Monday, March 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully we'll see you live then. Yeah.
She's a beautiful sharer of the principles. She really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Bill.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Somebody said I was a blessing. You know what I said to kids in grade school? It takes one to know one.
Yeah. Love that too.
Hi, Thomas.